Do you know what's the difference between technology and slavery? Slaves are fully aware that they are not free. It's not your fault you cannot focus. It's by design. Your distraction is their fuel for profit. Maybe you do have time for that class or a book or dinner. Maybe you do have time with that friend. Maybe you do have time to take that trip. The key is keep asking yourself the same question again and again. This is your life. What do you want to pay attention to? Welcome to another episode of the Toolkit for Our 20th podcast, where I provide all the tools we need to navigate our young adulthood. I'm your friend Kitty, as in Hello Kitty. In today's episode, we're diving deep into a topic that's probably sitting right in your hand or pocket at this very moment. Our beloved, sometimes overbearing smartphones. Now, fair warning, today's episode is going to be a little bit longer than other episodes because I believe that every bit of research, every tip we're about to discuss is equally important. I just cannot take them away from the script. I want this to be our ultimate guide to breaking up with our phones and reclaiming control of our lives. But hey, if you're particularly interested in specific parts, be it the sneaky brain hacks some apps use, the best ways to reorganize your phone, or setting healthy digital intentions, please feel free to jump ahead to those sections. I've included timestamps in the show notes for our convenience. So, here are some questions for you. When was the last time you picked up your phone? Besides when you opened this episode. Was it to check a notification? Maybe to find directions? Or did you just pick it up out of habit? And how did you feel once you put it back down? I haven't really thought about all these questions until I stumbled upon a scientifically validated smartphone compulsion test. Yep, that's a real thing, a test that's designed to gauge how addicted we are to our phones. And yours truly scored a whopping 12 out of 15. According to the scoring guide, someone with a score higher than 8 might want to consider a consultation with a psychologist, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist who specializes in behavioral addictions. If you're curious about your own phone relationship, you can find the test link in our show notes. When I first saw my score, my initial reactions were 1, oh my God, and 2, this result is ridiculously hard to pronounce for a non-native speaker like me, and 3, what's wrong with me? Luckily, or should I say unluckily, I am not alone. Studies show that the UK adults check their phones about 33 times per day. More than a third of UK adults look at their phones within 5 minutes of waking up, and 38% of adults check their phones before they have gone to bed. Up to 82% of women and 48% of men have checked their phone during sex. Yes, sex. There are a few ways to discern if you have signs or symptoms of phone addiction, such as a feeling of lack of connection, neglecting or trouble completing duties at work, school, or home, getting up at night to check a phone, reaching for the phone the moment you're alone or bored, etc. You can find the full list in the article, Phone Addiction, Warning Signs and Treatment, in the show notes. Actually, you don't really need a high score or a laundry list of symptoms to consider taking actions. If you want to spend less time on your phone, if you want to take back control of your life, if you already understand all the psychological tricks that your phone uses to keep you engaged, yet still cannot resist its pull, then it's time to step up. To make you and me more determined on this journey, let's start with why those tiny boxes on our phones are so evil. The first and worst is that it alters our brain to make it like a drug user's brain. It's our human nature to avoid feeling bad and ideally with as little effort as possible. So instead of getting to the root of our negative feelings, we turn to alcohol or drugs or our phones. Chronic phone overuse is proven to change reward circuits in the brain chemically. It causes disturbances to the GABA system, which is known for producing a calming effect. It's thought to play a major role in controlling nerve cell hyperactivity associated with anxiety, stress, and fear. In addition, excessive phone use leads to a decrease in gray matter. Gray matter in our brain is connected to the part of the central nervous system responsible for enabling individuals to control movement, memory, and emotions. A recent study scanned participants' brain with a phone addiction and discovered a change in their brain's gray matter. According to the researchers, the physical shape and size of their brains resemble that of drug users. Secondly, smartphones shrink our attention spans, impair our memory, and stifle our creativity. By nature, our humans are easily distracted. This trait was useful to our ancestors in the wild when sudden changes in the environment could signify threats. But in today's modern world, our phones are the changes that constantly demand our attention, and our brains haven't evolved to ignore them. Regarding memory, our brains have two primary forms of memory, short-term and long-term. Short-term memory, or say working memory, is where everything you're holding in your brain at any given moment. And it's also the gateway thought which every long-term memory must pass. Long-term memory, on the other hand, exists in a network of other connected memories called schemas. Those schemas help us make sense of the world by linking every piece of new information that we acquire to the information that we already have. However, when we overload our working memories with our phones, we make it harder for our brains to transfer new information to our long-term memories. This makes it less likely that we'll remember the experiences and information we managed to pay attention to. And what's worse, it weakens our schema and makes us less likely to have insights and ideas. We end up losing our capacity for deep thoughts. Moreover, smartphones can harm our mental health. Aside from the well-known facts that smartphones can cause anxiety, depression, FOMO, on and on, I also learned an interesting effect in the book Stolen Focus. That is, phones make us more angry. One of my friends recently sent me lots of, bad news that he has saw online, like stupid comments he found, and told me like how ridiculous he thinks all these arguments or these quarrels on the internet are. A few days later, he told me he felt really shy by looking at these things all day long, and he really wanted to stay away from those things. And there's a word for it, doom scrolling. On YouTube, do you know what kind of keywords in the titles might get you the most clicks? According to the best site monitoring YouTube trends, words like hates, obliterates, slams, destroys. The smart algorithms then learn all our personal triggers. What excites you, what angers you, what enrages you. Research shows that if I make you angry, you will pay less attention to the quality and arguments around you. And you will show something called decreased depth of processing. That is, you will think in a shallower, less attentive way. You will keep watching longer if you see things that are outrageous, shocking, and extreme. That perfectly explains that why under this type of videos, you can always see a bunch of people arguing and shouting at each other, even though they're really seeing people in their daily lives. This type of content just elicits the dark side within us. As Tristan Harris, the former Google design ethicist and participant in the documentary The Social Dilemma puts it, no matter where you start, you end up crazier. In addition to inciting anger, these platforms will also make you feel that you're surrounded by the anger of others, which will trigger a defensive psychological response in you. Picture that you are walking in a forest, happily, peacefully, but suddenly you're confronted by an aggressive bear, which is getting closer and closer. At that very moment, would you still be thinking about your mundane concerns like your dinner plans or your laundry? Probably not. And similarly, when you're constantly exposed to hostility online, you become more vigilant, focusing on potential dangers and giving less attention to calmer activities like reading a book or enjoying a meal. And thinking back to my own experience, the most unsettling part for me was realizing that this isn't who I used to be. Not too long ago, I was known as the girl who barely glanced at her phone. I remember once a classmate borrowed my phone to kill some time while we were waiting for someone else, and she hopes to maybe find some games, and just gave my phone back very immediately, saying, "Your phone is so boring, there's nothing on it." And all my best friends in my university know if they see me looking at my phone for a very long time, then I must be memorizing vocabulary for the GMAT test. So what happened? What has changed me? The thing I didn't realize at that time is it's not my fault. It's not our fault. When we find ourselves looking at the phone for too long, we start blaming ourselves. Why can't I just put the phone down? Where has my self-discipline gone? What about my goals, my ambitions, my dreams? But here's the truth. The blame is not on you. It's on the phone. The phone and the thousands of fancy apps on it don't just come along. As Jobs puts it, they are designed. They're designed to steal our attention and our time. They're designed to exploit our natural vulnerabilities and get us hooked. They're designed to increase our screen time as much as possible. The more we scroll, the more ads we'll see and the more money those tech companies make. You've likely heard the saying in the attention economy today. If you're not paying for a product, you are the product. Your time, attention, and data are sold for the profit of others. So, how indeed do phones get us addicted? The answer is brain hacking, which means behavioral design based on brain chemistry. My job is a product manager in the tech department, so I know exactly what we take into consideration to measure the success of a new feature or a product, like what kind of metrics we care about when designing something. Mostly, there are things like session duration, click-through rate, daily, weekly, or monthly active users. We normally care about engagement metrics way more than user satisfaction, not to mention the mental health of our users. Even though, disclaimer here, I don't have to do all these in my role because I currently work on internal products. So our mission is to enable our employees/users to finish their tasks on the product as quickly as possible so they can close the app real quick and go to do their real work. So our products don't harm users' mental health unless we have too many bugs on the apps. Oops. But as a PM, I still know many tricks here. And once you know how to recognize these signs, you will see it all over your phone. To explain how this works, we need to dive into a bit of psychology and introduce some key terms. Term number 1, instant gratification. Send a text message and hear a satisfying, want to battle in the game and get a ton of coins and weapons. Line up 3 candies in Candy Crush and see them explode with dramatic sound effects. We're so used to all kinds of instant gratification we can get from very easy actions, and we lose the drive to work hard for long-term results. Studying for a test that's months away, learning a new language to fluency over the course of a year, putting effort into a real relationship, all these lose appeal to us. The end result, we struggle to do hard things that yield meaningful results. The next term is intermittent rewards. We all know it well. The sudden anticipation you feel whenever you pick up your phone. If I open Instagram, will I see new likes on the last post? If I swipe right on that person, will I get a match? If I get another loot box in the game, will I get the hero I've always dreamed about? These unpredictability drives us to repeat the action over and over. Psychologists have a term for the irresistible feeling of unpredictability. Intermittent rewards. Smartphones are basically slot machines we keep in our pockets, and we never know what we are going to find inside. Term number 3, infinite scrolling. In Google search, we can see the content, the search results are all divided into pages, which is called pagination in software engineering and is also how many apps used to work. When you have to click a button to go to the next page, it serves as an active choice on whether you want to consume more content. It gave you a moment to pause and think. However, a guy called Asa Raskin, forgive me if I pronounce you wrong, Asa, but you invented that. So he designed today's infinite scroll feature. When we got to the bottom, it automatically loaded another chunk of information for us. At the outset, he was very proud of this design because he has always been told that increased speed and efficiency of access were always advances. But later, he did an estimation on the extra time spent as a result of this feature, which is a total of 200,000 more total human life. Every moment from life to death is now spent scrolling a screen, including yours and mine. Next up, streaks. Have you ever received a reward or a badge or a higher ranking for logging into an app without missing a day? As a product manager, I can tell you that user engagement and retention are some of the most important metrics that we track. And they are measured by things like MAU, monthly active users, WAU, weekly active users, and DAU, daily active users. So you now understand why they wanted to log in every day, right? And also metrics like average number of sessions, frequency of return, number of actions in a specific feature, churn rate, renewal rate, you name it. And the last but the least and the also side is what we are. Okay, I cannot rhyme anymore. It's dopamine. The variability of reward releases dopamine, the neurohormone of pleasure and anticipation of reward. The problem with dopamine is that excessive stimulation of our brain creates addiction, and that's exactly how drug works. We become like lab rats, constantly pressing the lever to get food, getting addicted to the gambling feeling before we know it. There are definitely more brain hacking tricks, but the key takeaway here is it's not your fault that you cannot control, that you cannot focus. It's by design. Your distraction is the fuel for profit. And we're going to be honest with you. The more I researched about the negative impact, the more scared I am. And also the more I realize we need time, we need space, we need to break up with our phone. But how? The good news is with some changes, some simple changes, we can still take back control of our lives. So the coping strategies that I'm going to share with you now mainly comes from 3 resources. The book, How to Break Up with Your Phone, the article, The Optimal iPhone Settings and Best Apps for Productivity, Focus, and Health, and the TED Talk of Could We Live Without a Phone? You can find all these resources in the show notes in case you are interested to learn more. And one thing to be aware of is that don't be afraid to experiment. These are all the techniques that have worked for me to some extent, and I found them after lots of trial and error. Some might work for you, some might not. When it comes to establishing a healthy relationship with your phone, there are no rules. Experiment with different ideas and adapt the habits that feel right for you. Without further ado, let's get into the first part. Leverage technology to fight technology. First up, we have a simple trick. Switch your phone's display from color to grayscale, black and white, which will make your phone less stimulating. It's normally in your accessibility settings and then click color filter. The second tip, use voice commands more. There is a connection in your brain that associates the gesture of picking up your phone with getting instant gratification. By using voice commands, you cut off the trigger of picking up your phone and looking at it, which breaks the first part of the habit loop. And who knows, it might also save your life if your father kidnaps you, if you know which film I'm referring to. And it might also save your life if your father kidnaps you, if you know which film I'm referring to. Thirdly, use your lock screen and wallpaper as a reminder. Something like, you have more important things to do than looking at your phone. My lock screen now says, what do you want to pay attention to? And my home screen now says, what for? Why now? What else? These quotes are all from the book How to Break Up with Your Phone, and you can download these pictures with a quick Google search. The fourth on our list is to turn on or schedule Do Not Disturb mode or airplane mode when you want to focus or rest. The next tip, enable parental protection mode or install apps for it. Once the parental control mode is on, it adds extra difficulty for us to see some type of content, which are normally the most stimulating and addictive ones. The key here is to let others set the password. If you live alone, like me, you might not be able to have someone else set the password, but trust me, it really helps reduce time wasted on trivial content because you're forced to think twice before typing that password. Next up, a very short one. Limit your screen time or install screen blocker apps. Moving on, a radical step, but an effective one. Delete all social media apps. Yeah, I know, you might have already watched lots of YouTube videos on like before and after of someone quitting social media with dramatic thumbnails. You just never do it like I did. But right now, I would encourage you to either delete all these apps outright or at least remove them from your main screens. The social media app that I use most is called Little Red Book. It's a Chinese social media platform that's kind of like an equivalent to both YouTube and Instagram. And on it, I have over 40,000 followers. So for me, it's definitely a very necessary tool to use. I have to frequently check to see how's the last video performing, whether I got new comments, DMs, or brand deals. But then I found myself tumbling down the rabbit hole of endless scrolling every time I open it. So I deleted the app. It's not the end of my content creation journey. Don't get me wrong. It's just that now I use the chunky, slow desktop version that lacks the infinite scroll feature. I cannot check my DMs or comments very easily. So if I don't reply to you in time, I'm sorry about that, but I'm using, the desktop version. And when you delete those apps, if you're worried about forgetting your passwords, make sure you sort it out before deleting. And remember, you can always reinstall the app. So why not give it a try? Or at least remove them from your main screens so you will have to search them every time you want to open the app. Next, a nodie but a goodie. Turn off your notifications. Yes, I know it sounds cliche, but it works wonders. Disable all notifications. Oh, except for those essential tools. Uber, Okta login, things like that. Number 8, reorganize your phone. On your home screen, you can have all the tooling apps, maps, camera, ride sharing, banking, and so on. These apps do improve our lives, and they don't steal too much attention from us. It's very hard to imagine us getting addicted to Google Maps, right? On the second screen, let's put our curated junk food apps and emails. By junk food apps, I mean social media apps, if you still haven't deleted them, news apps, dating apps, shopping apps. And by curated, I mean if your employment of the app outweighs its risk, relocate it to the second screen and hide it in a folder, ideally with a title that reminds you to think before you open it, like ale. I don't know how to spell it, but you get the point. Oh, and also on the first two screens, you can pull the most commonly used widgets like weather and screen time. So if you want to check the weather, you don't even need to open the app. You can just unlock your phone and take a look. On the third screen, we have our utilities, clutter, and the undeletables. There are apps that you never actually use that serve some practical purpose like find your phone, or we just simply cannot delete them because the phone doesn't allow us to do that. So just let them be. Okay, that's already a lot. I'm gonna have to drink some water. The last but my favorite, turn off your phone. Yes, turn it off. Seriously. Turn it off for a few hours during the day when you want to focus. What could you possibly lose just because you didn't see a text the very minute you get it, or like you reply to a phone call a few hours later? I'm very willing to bet that if you were to reach your phone right now, you will not receive an email from a headhunter who invite you to join Google. You will not see a piece of great news that makes you want to jump up high, and you will also not get an invitation to dinner from your crush. Far more likely is that you're going to see something that upsets you or stresses you out. And to summarize them a little bit, the rationale behind many of these tips is to install speed bumps, which means small obstacles that force us to slow down. By creating a pause between our impulse and our actions, speed bumps gives us the chance to change course if we decide we want to make a difference. And even during the detox period, very, very important thing is always be gentle with ourselves. We see our new habits fluctuate inevitably. Some days we'll feel good. On others, we won't. And that's okay. As long as we're cultivating self-awareness, we're on the right track. And it's also important to cut ourselves a break if we slip back into old habits. This happens to everyone. The less time we spend beating ourselves up, the faster we get back on track. Okay, that's about technology. Let's now shift our focus to creating an environment that supports our willpower rather than drains it. Quote from the book, Willpower Doesn't Work. Your willpower is long gone. It was gone the moment you woke up and get sucked into your smartphone. It was gone when you were bombarded with 1,000 options and choices. If you don't shape your environment, it will shape you. So, here are some tips on how to optimize our environment. Tip number 1, manage your time. First, take a moment to write down a list of some non-phone related activities that brings you joy or satisfaction, and what you will do to incorporate those activities regular into your life. You can list them out or follow a prompt in the book on how to break up with your phone, which I've added in the show notes. The activities on my list, there are a lot, include watching movies, journaling, singing, making handicrafts, calling my parents, and also recording podcasts. Choosing several moments in your day when you are most likely to pick up your phone. See if there's a consistent trigger or pattern and replace it with the things you'd love to do more. Once you get a life and a natural source of dopamine, you won't need anything to distract yourself. It's all about intention, about what type of person you really want to be. Just as all other self-help material needs to include some quote from James Clear, here it comes. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. Okay, tip number 11, manage your space. Out of sight, out of mind. This is something I heard from every YouTuber talking about this topic. There are many simple actions you can take. Rearrange your environment, starting with where you charge your phone. Establish a no-phone zone in your home, a space free from digital distractions. It might sound very cliche, but please refrain from bringing your phone into your bedroom and opt for a physical alarm clock instead. And in office, I found I'm way less likely to touch my phone when I put it behind my laptop rather than beside it. Tip number 12, use physical prompts. When I was on subway one day, I saw a phone that was encased in 3 rubber bands. Initially, I thought, wow, that phone is on the blink of falling apart. But as it turned out, those rubber bands served as a physical reminders, prompting mindfulness each time the user reached their phone. You could try yourself, using a rubber band, hair tie, or a phone case with a reminder on it. Okay, after we have leveraged our technology, after we have optimized our environment, the last most important step is make the habit stay. So here comes the tip number 13. Oh, I know this episode is so long. Practice mindfulness, something like meditation or journaling. I won't talk too much about meditation today because that's such a big topic, but there are some key things to remember. If you find your mind wandering during meditation, please don't criticize yourself. Your mind wanders because you have a mind. All we need to do is just to bring it back again and again. And the next tip, number 14, is regularly self-reflect. Think about questions like, what aspects of your relationship with your phone are working well? Or what do you wish to change? What's the first step you could take towards that change? These prompts are borrowed from the book How to Break Up with Your Phone Again, and I have included them in the show notes. And tip number 15, there should be some drum effect here. Always remember your intention. Why do you want to break up with your phone? What will change if you're more focused? How much more potential you could achieve if you have more time? Maybe you do have time for the class or book or dinner. Maybe you do have time with that friend. Maybe you do have time for the trip. The key is to keep asking yourself the same question again and again. This is your life. What do you want to pay attention to? This is all for today's episode of Toolkit for Our 20s. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you like what you've been hearing today, I encourage you to please follow the show and leave a review. Tell me what you love about this episode, which is your favorite episode, or what you want to hear me talk about in the future. I'm your host, Kitty, as in Hello Kitty. Have a good rest of your day and see you in the next episode.